Hey my friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. It's winter here in Arizona, which means it's convertible weather. Even though it might not look like it today, it's a great time to have the top down. So today we're test driving the all-new 2018 Audi A5 Cabriolet. Redesigned inside and out, a lot of new features to talk about. So I'm going to show it to you, we're going to take it for a test drive, and I'm going to tell you what I really think. On the topic of styling, the A5 is based on the A4 sedan in a lot of ways, yet it has its own look, it has its own shaping, its own contouring. And when we look at the A5 Coupe and we start making that into a convertible, that soft top completely stows down underneath a hard tonneau cover, and then we have the nice look of a top-down roadster. Yet this isn't technically a roadster, this is a four-seat Grand Tour. The thing to really point out here is the Coke bottle shape that we see down the side, and especially up here into this front three-quarter view. We've got completely different front fenders and hood and other details here than you're going to find on the A4 sedan. This has a more rounded approach to its lines, but as you look at the face here, this has the traditional Audi look. You can't mistake this for anything else. The Audi single frame grille, and as you can see here with the details, they've hidden all of the radar sensors and all of that equipment that really makes the driver's aids of this car work. They've done it very gracefully, unlike some other cars out there where they've got these big blank slabs that are clearly equipment. Headlights on this one, these are LED headlights. They're fully adjustable. They have a beautiful signature during the daytime and at night. On this one, we've got the optional 19-inch wheels. They're very elegant looking, I think, for a wheel this size, and yet they're still sporty. Sometimes it's hard to do both. I think they've accomplished it here. And of course, 18-inch wheels are standard on the A5 Cabriolet. Another thing I want to point out here is something that we see in a lot of Audi cars is the nice satin aluminum trim here on the windshield header, and that sort of is something that Audi likes to do, especially on some of their other cars that have a high use of aluminum in them. It's less prominent here on a silver car, but when you look at some of the other colors that Audi offers here, it really does pop. As we come down the side here, this beautiful satin aluminum trim continues and wraps all the way around to the rear tonneau cover. Very seamless in the way it looks, and again, as I said up front, if this were a darker or brighter color, that would really pop. It's elegant, I like it. As we continue looking at this three-quarter view, you can see we've got nice taut lines that stretch back in here to that rear deck lid, and there's a bit of a ducktail molded in right there at the top of that, and these taillights, LED of course, and these actually have a very nice three-dimensional quality to them. Very sleek, very angular. That seems to be the theme here. Down on the lower fascia, I'll point out we've got genuine exhaust tips. They're real. They'll burn you if you touch them when they're hot. And I only point that out because a lot of Audis in the most recent generations of their designs have been going to these fake exhaust pipes that are plastic ornaments. They're not real, and it bugs me. What can I say? So if you like the real deal, if genuine purity is something that just pushes your buttons, get this one before they redesign it. The interior of Audi cars have always been places I've loved to be because ever since I've been into cars, and that goes back a ways, Audis have always had the nicest combination of wood and leather, and this is a car that continues that tradition just as well as almost any other Audi that I've been in. Now, I will say that this design is a little bit different than what we've seen in Audis in the past, in such that it's less designed to be a cockpit where you, the driver, feel that it's all about you. No, here we've got a dash that's more horizontal in design, and we've got this vent design that spans the entire width of it. So it really has a more luxury car feel than it does a driver's car, in my opinion. And the way the console is designed as well, it's more furniture-like. And what we've got here in this car is every option imaginable. So this has the top trim here in the interior, which means some of the hard plastics that we saw in the Audi A4 sedan that we tested last year are masked by soft trims. And instead of the aluminum trims, we have burl wood, which always my favorite. And with this dark brown leather, I really like the way it looks. And you can tell I sort of dressed appropriately here, so I'm complimentary. Controversial color though. I've talked to a few people that really don't like it. Luckily, you can choose a lot of different colors here for the interior. You're not just stuck with this. Now the materials in here, I do have to talk about that because even though we've got better trims here and there, Some of the plastics in here, I feel, are a little bit downscale from Audis of the past. It sort of feels like maybe they're doing a little bit of cost cutting here and there, something I pointed out also when we tested the A4 last year. But that said, the switchgear is still the best in the business. We've got very simple layouts here for the climate control, as well as the ancillary switches down on the lower part of the center stack. And down on the center console, we've got very high quality feel to the switchgear that's here. Center console is designed in such a way that we've got very little storage here. You have storage down here in the center, but it's not very deep, and it's actually not lockable or closable. You can always see what's down in there, but they saved this adjustable armrest, something the Volkswagens have been losing, always been part of the brand family DNA. Now, one thing I will point out is we've got cup holders up front. Not the best design in the world, because where they're at, if you put a tall cup here, it actually gets up against your buttons and your switches, and if it's a larger cup, it actually won't fit in there. Just a little design detail. When it comes to ports and plugs, down here in the center console box, you've got your USB ports and auxiliary port for the infotainment system. Sitting here, these seats are very comfortable. In this particular car, I've got heated and ventilated seats. Right here at my neckline, just like in the Mercedes-Benz Cabrio we tested last week, we've got a heating air vent right there, right on the neck. Love it, especially here in the winter. These are very comfortable seats. They're power adjustable for both the driver and the passenger here. And of course, I've got a tilt and telescoping steering wheel. Surprising at this price, however, this is a manually adjustable steering wheel. Leather covered though, and it's heated to boot. The instrument cluster in this is the full tilt virtual cockpit display. Now, as you can see right here, I got it set up with a full nav map all the way across, and those dials turn down small, but you can customize this in any number of ways. You can have big dials with information in the center, you can have big dials with map in the center. You can really mix it up and make it your way, or you can put the nav map over there on the center screen. I really like the way it looks there in the dash like that. I think that's pretty sexy, if I might say so. And this also has all the driver aids and other things that are controllable right here through the center screen. We'll get to that in a minute. Rear seat space, not the largest in class, but legroom back there is actually pretty good. And these front seats do push forward far enough to make ingress and egress pretty easy back there. One thing I will point out that's actually quite unique for a car like this is that these rear seats do fold down, allowing you to get access into the trunk. So if you've got something that needs to slide through, you can still do that even though we have the convertible and that trunk space, even though it is truncated, pardon the pun, a little bit smaller than you might find in the coupe trunk. There's still pretty commendable space back there. And in that trunk you see laying there on the floor is the packaging for the wind deflector. It's a manual deflector that you can put up there to help with the wind buffeting. Overall, I love the look and feel of this interior. I love this rich brown leather. I love the burl wood. It's right up my alley when it comes to colors and finishes. I wish some of the materials in here, some of these plastics here on the console, on the dash, and some of the actual fit and finish in here were a little bit more, in my opinion, up to the price of this car. But outside of that, this is a wonderful interior. It gets 4 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system in this car is a center floating screen, which is not a touch screen. All the controls for this are down here on the center console. You got a volume knob here. Over here on the center, on the other side of the shifter, you've got a twist knob, you've got a bank of buttons, you've got a few toggles, and you've got a touchpad right here in the middle of this knob that enables you to do some input as well as some swipe functions. So when it comes to this type of system, using it is actually better than most. You've got great graphics up here, they're crisp, the glare level is actually quite low, and they're laid out very well, which is a good thing because using these controls down here does take a little bit of effort and work. And while you're driving, there's several steps that you've got to take above and beyond what it would take if you simply had a volume and a tuning knob up here and a few buttons up there that you could just hit for quick things. Here you've got to reach over the shifter here, and it does actually create sort of an odd relationship in terms of ergonomics, actually reaching these buttons, and sometimes odd. But that said, it's beautiful to look at. Bang & Olufsen audio system sounds absolutely great once you get it on the station where you want it. It's just actually tuning the station, it's finding the presets, it's paging through the menus to get to it that takes a little bit of extra effort. That said, this is a system that's fully featured. It's got a beautiful backup camera, 360-degree view, one of the best in the business, and the nav system works absolutely wonderful. Again, one of the best in the business. This system gets 4 out of 5 stars. Under the hood of the Audi A4 Cabriolet is a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, this one with 252 horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque. Now, you'll note that it's longitudinally mounted, and that is an Audi trait in most of their models, and because of that, we've got a wonderful quattro all-wheel drive system that's standard that devotes most of its torque to the rear axle, 60%, with 40% going to the front axle. A 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission for quick shifts. All said, with all that equipment, the EPA rates this at 24 mpg city, 34 mpg highway, and 27 mpg combined. I always ask the question, how does it go? And 60. Now, Audi claims a 0 to 60 time of about 6 seconds. Now, as you just saw, about 1 second of that time is sitting and waiting for this thing to respond to your mashing of the pedal. But once you get going, it responds pretty good. And these paddle shifters work reasonably well. Wow, that's 100. Let me slow down. You got to be able to hear me after all. So, power is actually pretty good for a 4-cylinder. I don't think anyone's going to be disappointed in the power level here. This 7-speed automatic transmission, dual clutch, robotic manual does a pretty good job, and these paddle shifters do a pretty good job too. So if that's your thing, again, you're not going to be disappointed. Now, a couple of housekeeping items here. Around town, this transmission can be a little bit indecisive, regardless of which of the drive modes you put on. It's also got an auto start-stop system. Starts and stops the engine incessantly when you're driving around in town to save fuel. Now, luckily, you can turn it off. There's a button here, and you're going to want to because it's annoying, but it does save fuel. This is rated at 27 mpg combined. I got 29 in my week with it, so I'm impressed with the fuel economy. The transmission could be a little bit more refined, and we found that in other Audi products. So, at the end of the day, this is a powertrain that isn't going to disappoint you in power. It's got a little bit of off-the-line lag when it comes to drivetrain response that could be improved, and that's always been the case with Audi. They just tune them that way. So powertrain gets 4 out of 5 stars. When it comes to ride and handle, you might have already noticed that with the top down, it's pretty quiet in here. Now granted, I do have these windows up because I'm talking on a microphone, but even at high speeds that we've already been at, you can still hear what I'm saying, and I'm not raising my voice at all. That's a wonderful thing. So low buffeting going on, low noise, even at higher and highway speeds. Always a good thing, but how does it feel? That's really the big question here. Convertibles typically always have a little bit of what they call cowl shake. They're not as solid feeling as the cars with a hard roof. And so here what I'm finding, this has a very stiff chassis, very solid feeling, and even though the suspension stiffness can vary all the way up to a pretty stiff ride with the dynamic setting on the drive modes, I find that it doesn't get unsettled when you really start putting some speed on it. And this is a highway, I'll point out, that has some pretty rough pavement and a lot of bumps and things in it that can upset a lot of cars when you really start driving them. But as we get out here and start getting up to some speed, this feels nice and quiet and relaxed. And the steering feel, pretty precise, I must say, and the brakes also very, very good for what we've got here in the base model. I'm very impressed with the chassis. It feels very much its price. So chassis gets 5 out of 5 stars. On the measure of quality, something very important to me, especially here when we're talking about a luxury brand where we're spending a lot of money for something more than you're going to get in the standard fare automobiles. And so when we look at the details here, Audi's done a very good job of meeting expectations, at least in my opinion, especially when we look at body panel fit and alignment. There are a lot of opportunities here on this car to do it wrong. The fender, the hood, where those meet up, that is a very crucial line there. Back here on the tonneau cover, there's a lot of lines that they could get inconsistent or not line up that well, yet they've done it near perfectly. Paint finish, very good. The interior materials, I did make note of the fact that in our interior rating that the materials were a little bit downscale from where I expect them to be from previous Audi experience, but they're still very good in the marketplace here and very much comparable to BMW, Infiniti, Lexus, and Mercedes-Benz. So class average here, I'd say, when it comes to that. So overall quality comes in at 5 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, wrapping it up for the 2018 Audi A5 Cabriolet. Let's have a look at the specs. Now, as you can see here, we're priced out right at $65,000 and some change. Now, that represents about $15,000 in options and packaging over the base price, which is just under $50,000. And quite frankly, when you compare this against other models like the ones from BMW or Mercedes-Benz, we're right in the ballpark when it comes to that base price and where you can go with the options. In fact, some of those others you can go a lot higher, and you can here if you step up into the next model up the grade. So as I look at this here and try to put a value on this, as with any luxury brand, it's always hard, but when I look at $15,000 in options and what we've actually got here, I think we're at a pretty good parity in value. We've got a beautiful interior, we've got a nice presentation with these extra wheels and the headlights, and a lot of the different things, the technology that comes with all of that pricing. So when I look at value and compare it against the peers and what you get spending up there, I put value at 5 out of 5 stars. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 4.5 stars for the review. Quite good. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. So if you did enjoy the test drive, I invite you to see our latest one right there on the big square. We test drive one car a week, sometimes two, and we've always got a lot of great automotive news to boot. If you really liked it, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do that by clicking on the big round logo right there. Either way, stay tuned.